Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well today. This time we are going to be talking about Bionic Commando. This is one of the Worlds of Power books, and I think it's probably the best of the Worlds of Power books. So our book starts with two people, Jack and his partner Super Joe, and they're celebrating the defeat of some evil organization called Naz. Apparently Naz had this super weapon called the Albatross, but that has gone missing and has fallen into the hands of a different criminal organization, Bad. Just to get this out of the way, I have no idea what makes Super Joe so super. I'm guessing his first name is Super and his middle name is Joe, and I'm just going to say his last name is Astonishing. So his full name is probably Super Joe Astonishing. What is his superpower exactly? I'm not sure. I'm guessing it's the power to get captured and then saved by someone else. I spent a ridiculous amount of time trying to figure out why he was called Super Joe. And at the end of it, I just, whatever. If they were going to give him a stupid name, they might as well have just made it dumber by adding something even more ridiculous for his last name, but, whatever. Anyway, he doesn't exactly live up to his moniker of being super, as he gets the crap kicked out of him by a bunch of ninjas that Bad has hired, and we get a display of his superpower, which is getting captured and then tortured by bad people. Yeah, I'm aware of that. Anyway, so Jack escapes by jumping out of the window, and on his way down, he's on like the 20th floor or something ridiculous like that. On his way down, one of the enemy ninjas throws a shuriken, and this somehow chops his arm off. It's explained that the shurikens can kill people, I don't know, if you get hit by one, you die. I don't really get that because Jack just loses an arm. I don't even understand how he really lost his arm, but he gets a shuriken to the arm, lands into a pool, blacks out, wakes up, and he's now our Bionic Commando. So Jack gets his mission. Hey, you're now the Bionic Commando. You're going to go in. You're going to save Super Joe, who's apparently been missing or has been captured for a couple of weeks at this time. Jack then goes on like a little training montage, learns how to use all the different gadgets and everything with his bionic arm, which has just a whole bunch of crazy stuff added onto it, like super strength. He has 2 grappling hooks. He has one finger that makes everything really hot. They're all like very sensitive, so he can unlock locks with them. And yeah, he can pretty much do everything with his arm. So Joe's been kidnapped or captured for like 6 or 7 weeks at this point. For some reason, Bad keeps him alive because, the story wouldn't be all that interesting if they just killed him off and then used their Albatross thing to blow up the entire world. But yeah, so Jack goes in and he goes on a bunch of missions to gather a bunch of items from different stages. So it really is kind of like a video game, which is fun. I mean, the source material's a video game, so it makes sense. He's got to go grab a bunch of random items, random weapons, which seem to only be used in 1 or 2 spots, and then he moves on to the next one. He's got a couple of helpers along the way as well, which, fair enough, whatever. Some of them are weird, but I just want to point out that this is supposed to be a secret enemy base that everyone seems to have the layout for, and they've already got moles inside of the enemy base, like at least 4 of them that we know of, so why they couldn't have saved Joe is just kind of beyond me. So he gathers up all the weapons, he goes and he rescues Super Joe. Then they split up, and Super Joe again uses his superpowers to get captured and imprisoned again. This is when we run into our 3 bad guys, which are Kilts, he's the leader, or Kilt, and then the Hand, who's his second in command, and then Master Destructo, who created the Albatross, and then gets brought in to fix it. So the Hand gets killed by Master Destructo. Master Destructo sends the Albatross after Jack. Jack blows up the Albatross by blowing up the power supply, which is inexplicably exposed to the outside. I don't know. Again, video games, so why not? So that happens, and then Kilt and Master Destructo get on the same helicopter and are escaping, and Jack is able to use, his super bionic powers. Oh, by the way, Jack also has ninja powers. That only really came up once, and I have no idea why. I just thought it was kind of funny. But Jack has ninja powers. So Jack uses all of his super spy powers, which are, I'm guessing, the bionic arm, his ninja powers, and then, his bottomless pit, because the dude is just shoveling food in his face for most of this book. So he uses all of that to fire a rocket, blow up the helicopter, and we kind of assume that they're both dead. Both Master Destructo and Kilt. A message then plays across, I'm guessing, all of the bases that Kilt has, saying that he is going to kill everyone that has been working for him because he doesn't want to be succeeded by someone who he deems to be, lesser than him, which is everyone apparently. And we have 1 minute to get out. But remember, Super Joe is still captured and imprisoned somewhere, so Jack has to go save his dumbass, which he does in the span of a minute. He finds him, saves him, and they get out on their helicopter. And then it just kind of ends. And we're left with a bunch of dangling plot threads. Because along the way, Hal, one of the, I think the only person who actually gets a name, one of the moles, he gets attacked and apparently shoved off of a roof. But we don't know because the transmission cuts off and he's never mentioned again, so he's probably dead. You have M8, who is somewhere in the base. He's never mentioned again, so we can only assume that he's been either blown up or shot, which is just wonderful. And then we have Heather and Tiger. They're never mentioned again at the end because, the book just kind of stops. Tiger is the little orphan boy who apparently has a photographic memory of every single place that he's been and can draw very intricate maps of all of Bad's locations for reasons. And Heather is a fellow spy and Super Joe's fiance, so she's got a wonderful life ahead of her of rescuing Super Joe's dumbass. And I'm just hoping that their children don't get his superpowers of being captured and having to be saved, because that's going to be really annoying for them in the future. So that's pretty much the story, and I know I've sounded a little weird about it, but I actually kind of like this story. It feels like an 80s or 90s action movie, but like one of the B movies. Like I really felt like I was reading a script proposal for like The One-Armed Executioner, or one of the other like weird Filipino exploitation movies or something like that. It was just kind of cool to read. I really did dig the story here, even if it was kind of stupid. So I mentioned a little bit of this already, but I felt like I was reading an 80s action movie, or even like an early 90s action movie. It was a fun story, like as long as you don't think too much about what you're reading. Because again, this was supposed to be for young adults. This wasn't meant for, grumpy old men like me. And yeah, it's just kind of a fun and sort of goofy story. There's a lot of hopping around from location to location. This kind of made it feel like it was a video game. Like they've got the different goals they have to get. Like in order to pass this level, you need to get the 3-way gun, or in order to pass this, you need to get the wide gun. Some of them it kind of felt like, okay, he's just grabbing crap to grab crap, because he very rarely uses this shit. Or if he does, it's like one and done, and then it disappears from the story altogether. But yeah, it still kind of feels a little bit like a video game. You're going from one site to the next, finding an item, then moving on to the next, defeating a mini boss, going on, fighting the big boss, that kind of thing. I actually really dug the character development in this that the author at least tried to include in the story. Jack mentions, what he would have done when he was a younger spy, and he talks about how that's kind of changed. He talks about, caring for the people that are helping him along the way, how he wants to, make them happy. He wants to save his friend Super Joe. I'm not totally sure why, because Super Joe kind of seems like a shit friend, or at least a friend that makes everything harder for you, but hey, that's just me. I don't think I would have saved... Well, no, I probably would have saved Super Joe, if I could, but whatever. He does get some advice from a few different people, so there's kind of a mentor person in this, but it doesn't really play that much into the story. The person I wasn't too sure why they were in the book, Tiger, I'm not sure why he's here. Jack seems to have all of the intelligence on the secret base, which isn't really all that secret, that he's gonna need. Like, the group that he works for, the Federation, probably had all of the layouts of this place, because they seem to know exactly where it was, like all the different parts of it, and they seem to know exactly where all the weapons and everything were. And they already had spies inside this organization, so someone in their group most likely had mapped all this out. Tiger just kind of seems to be there to give you another person to root for, and because you kind of want him to make it to America like he wants to do. The ending was also just really abrupt. Like, I don't know what happened to several of the people in this book. Like, Hal's never mentioned again, so you don't know if he's dead or alive. You don't know if M8's dead or alive. You don't really know if these guys made it back to Heather and Tiger. You don't know if they're okay. You never get anything like that. The book just sort of stops. I don't know what was going on with that, but it just kind of felt a little weird to me. I think the book could have been wrapped up in a better way, because they kind of off-screen a lot of this stuff and just say, oh, by the way, Joe grabbed all these other items, so we don't have to worry about those. So there's a lot that's skipped, but I think that had to do with, like, page limits or something like that. Yeah, there were a lot of changes from the game to the book, and I think there kind of had to be, because the story for the game was pretty threadbare, so I like that they built out a lot of the other things here and tried to add more of a story, more of a reason for what was going on and why Jack really wanted to get through everything. I really do wish they had left a lot of the weapons out, because that just seemed useless. Like, he never uses a lot of the shit that he picks up. It was kind of strange and kind of stupid, but yeah, that's pretty much what I liked and didn't like, so let's wrap this thing up. So final thoughts. I really do think this is probably the best of the Worlds of Power books. It's still kind of goofy, but I think if I was a kid back in 1991, or if I had this book back in 1991, that's what I should say, I probably would have liked it. It's one of those scholastic books that would have been kind of cool to read. If I had played Bionic Commando and then saw this book at one of the book fairs, I probably would have wanted to pick that one up, especially if I was a big fan of it. Unfortunately, with the way I am now, I would have just gone and grabbed the Goosebumps books instead of picking up World of Power books. But with they were going for a certain market, and I think they probably got it. It's a fine book. It is probably my favorite out of all of them, just because of how kind of entertaining it is. It doesn't seem as dumb as some of the others, and it's also way better than the Mega Man 2 book. That's going to wrap things up. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I hope you all have a great day, everybody. Bye.